store. 3:30, says the station clock. 3:30 will have to do, for these orderly men are surprised once again to remember that they've bartered away their watches in recent weeks, or sewn them into the linings of their overcoats, or otherwise set them aside. They shake their heads. What slow learners they've become. And they move on, keeping up. The clock says 3:30. There is no time to waste. Among those who don't look up at all are the 4 members of the Rosen family. The parents, Jacob and Eidel. The children, Max and Lydia. Like everyone else in their car, they've been underway for 3 days, or perhaps 4. Not really traveling so much as waiting to travel. Locked in the cars and anticipating movement, and dreading it at the same time. For with each lurch forward, the train has taken them another step toward a destination known only to itself. Their journey began 18 months prior, and barely 100 miles away, high among the highest ranges of the Carpathian Mountains, in the resort town of Zakopane. It was the place of Jacob's birth, which meant that he'd be a long time seeing how very beautiful it was. He'd need help, in fact. The help of a girl, which is often the way these things go. Beauty of any sort had never been much in his line to begin with. He'd been a hiker during his youth and early manhood, but strictly for the exercise. Although his friends knew the name of every peak, and the song of every bird, and the chatter of every squirrel, Jacob Rosen catalogued only the most difficult routes from one destination to the next. It was never a walk in the woods for him. It was always a test. At home he'd stand in the corner of his father's shop, drinking the last of the water from his canteen, and watching the old man's hands as he trimmed the hair of a vacationer from Warsaw or Krakow, listening to the stranger rhapsodize about the fields of undulating crocuses that he and his wife had discovered blooming in some alpine valley just this very morning, thinking that this great lump of a tourist, sitting beneath a crisp white sheet, as if masquerading as a mountain himself, sounded like a man who'd never seen a crocus before. Worse than that, like the man who'd invented them. As years went by, Jacob's father taught him what he needed to know about running the shop, including how best to endure men like these. He said, "You don't want word getting out that young Rosen has no respect for the people who constitute his trade. A reputation like that would be trouble enough right there in the town, but imagine if people began telling tales back in Warsaw, saying, 'Visit Zakopane if you must, but get your hair trimmed before you go. Young Rosen would just as soon take your ears off.' It would be the end of everything that his father had built in this life. More years had gone by, and the old man had passed away, and the shop was in Jacob's hands when Eidel arrived. Eidel Mankiewicz from Warsaw, here for a month skiing with her parents and her 3 younger sisters. She'd never seen a place even half so beautiful. She couldn't get enough of it. The truth was that she could barely bring herself to come indoors, and late one afternoon, as Jacob trimmed her father's hair, she waited outside the shop, utterly rapt and completely indifferent to what was going on inside, caught up in the gathering of clouds over the high peaks, her face illuminated by the last rays of the fading light. Inside, Jacob slipped and nicked her father's cheek, and Mankiewicz said, "Perhaps you ought to turn on a light. The evening comes so early here in the mountains." He was a hard man by the look of him, worldly but tough-minded, a lawyer, perhaps, someone with the means to bring a large family here to the limits of the Carpathians on an extended holiday. He was a hard man, but he could see that this barber wasn't going to turn on a lamp until the last possible minute, not while pretty young Eidel was standing outside his window, with her face tilted up into the dying light. Not as long as he could still see her. Mankiewicz was a man who understood the world, and he resigned himself to enduring another nick or 2. What was the harm? They were children. They wouldn't be young forever. She didn't go home to Warsaw. When the month was over, she stayed on in Zakopane, and she acquired her own apartment with money from her father, and she sent home for her paints and brushes. She skied or hiked.